the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today's guest is a truly inspiring individual, Rich LaMonica. Rich is a retired Sergeant First Class from the Army, where he served honorably for 22 years. His journey is one of resilience, leadership, and the relentless pursuit of personal growth. Growing up in Jersey City, New Jersey, Rich was influenced by a long family history of military service. This deep-rooted sense of duty led him to join the Army, where he honed his leadership skills and faced numerous challenges, including the devastating loss of a fellow soldier in Sergeant Michael Beckerman. This event profoundly impacted Rich, shaping him into the leader that he is today. Transitioning from military to civilian life was not easy for Rich. He spent 365 days unemployed, a period of self-reflection that taught him the valuable lessons about perseverance and the importance of planning for early transition. This experience fueled his drive to help other veterans navigate their post-military lives successfully. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Rich founded the Misfit Nation Show and the LLC, a platform dedicated to sharing stories of resilience and supporting the veteran community. His core values of faith, family, mindset, resilience, loyalty, and leadership guide his work. Rich is also a motivational speaker and author of 2 books, including the award-winning 13-Step Guide to Success. He's pursuing a PhD in Homeland Security from Liberty University and continues making a significant impact through his leadership in the Travis Manion Foundation. Join us as we dive into Rich LaMonica's story, exploring his military career, challenging civilian life, transition, and ongoing mission to empower and inspire others. Rich embodies what it means to be a true strategic veteran, dedicated to leading and uplifting the veteran community. So let's warmly welcome Rich LaMonica to the Strategic Veteran. Rich, thanks, brother, for being here, man. It's great to have you.
Oh, Adam, brother, this is awesome. It's grateful that you reached out to me, and I know we're going to do a show flop here in a little bit, so it's going to be awesome to have your story on my side. It's something veterans need to do, is share each other's stories and share our victories, no matter how small or different they are from each other, because we're all doing great things out here in the world.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more, dude. And I'm just excited to have this conversation, put your story out to the listeners and introduce them to you and let you be an example for that transition and letting them know that they're not alone, because it's so important. So that being said, man, share a little bit about Jersey City, what it was like growing up and what influenced your decision to join the Army.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. I was born and raised in Jersey City in the Journal Square section. We lived in what is called a railroad apartment. So there was 4 kids, my sister and 3 brothers, 2 brothers, myself, mom and dad, and all the rooms are connected. There's no hallways. So you walk in, kitchen to the front, living room to all the bedrooms. So there's no real privacy there. And having 3 boys, we got stuck in the same room together. So you learn to be tough or get hurt really bad. And I had my share of both. And but you grow up watching what mom and dad do and what your elders do and how they perform in life, and watching my mom and dad work their tails off to make sure we had everything we needed, not necessarily what we wanted, but we had everything we needed to live a good life. We weren't a well-off family, but they, like I said, they worked their tails off, showed us the ethics that go into working. In my book, 13 Steps Guide to Success, I share a few stories of my mom and dad and things they did, not just for us, but for other kids in the neighborhood. Because, as you grow up, all the parents are parents. And especially in my time, all the parents were parents, and it didn't matter who was outside, they were in charge of you. So if my dad had to take care of one of my friends, he took care of my mom the same way. The Kool-Aid house was usually called what our house was. Every kid would come there to get snacks or drinks or bandages, because that's what happened. As I grew up, sitting with my dad on the couch, it was the 70s, so I'm not sure. I can't remember if it was the end of the Vietnam War that was on the little 13-inch TV, or maybe something that was going on in the Middle East at the time. Watching soldiers fighting, and I used to tell my dad, that looks like a fun job, but you go out there and you play Army all day. You just go out there and you just go do things out there and have fun with your friends. And he kept saying, no, that's not what it is, because he served in the Army, but that would go over my head. So as I went through school, I was doing the things in high school to get out of high school to go in the Army. That's all I wanted to do, was go in the Army. I got to my between junior and senior year, and I said, Dad, I need you to sign this, because I was underage to sign up to join the Army. He said, you're not going in the Army. You got to go to college. Enough of us have served. He was in the Army. My grandfather was in the Army. My grandfather's brother was in the Army. He's actually buried in France. My brother was in the Navy. He said, enough of us had served. You're going to college. I said, all right, I haven't done anything to go to college. He said, figure it out. So my whole senior year, I had to take all those classes I brushed off the rest of the year. So I was taking multiple maths, multiple sciences, the extra Englishes, and then I had to take the SAT. So I blew that off as well. Somehow I passed all that and got accepted into college. I went to St. Peter's College, played college football, just walked on and played because I didn't want to be there. I figured if I was there, I might as well have fun. So I was playing college football, did that for 2 years, and then I finally said, this is enough. I can do it myself now. And I joined the Army. Then 22 years later, I was out.
Yeah, man. No, so did your dad kind of stifling that and telling you you're going to college leave a sour taste in your mouth?
No, I kind of took it as a challenge for me to grow up a little bit. And looking at the moment, I was angry because that's all I wanted to do. But as I grew up and was able to reflect upon it, it was a challenge he gave me to be a better human and learn more and see if there's something else out there first. So I applaud him for doing that.
Yeah, because that tends to be, people ask me, would you, give advice to my kid about going into the Army or the, whatever, the military in general. And, my advice, honestly, looking back at my career and just the things that I observed, my advice is to go to college first, do a ROTC program, get the degree, be an officer, mainly because you're going to make more money and you're going to learn how to network better and set yourself up for when you get out better. At least that was my perception getting out. However, after starting this show and talking to some officers, they're not immune to the transition problems that we go through either, right? They just sometimes they just have a better network and land, in a better spot, but still struggle the same. So, that's awesome, man. And like you said, you came from a military or a strong military background. Your grandpa, his brother, buried in France. Were they all Army? And did you ever consider another branch, or was it just always Army for you?
It was always Army until I went to the recruiting station, and I figured my best friend was about to go in the Air Force. He was going to Air Force ROTC at the time. I said, let me try the Air Force. And I walked in there, and the Air Force recruiter had moved. They moved 45 minutes away. I said, I guess they're out the window. I guess the Army it is. So I went in the Army.
Yes, it's just a little twist of fate that they happened to move and you ended up in the Army anyway. So what was your MOS? What did you end up doing?
I was a 54 Bravo or 74 Delta at the end, chemical operations specialist.
Okay. And any particular reason you chose to do that, or was that just kind of what was available to you?
My dad told me not to go infantry. So he said, the only thing I ask you is don't go infantry or armor. He was a tanker. Don't go infantry or armor. So I went to chemical. I asked them, I said, what do you do? They said, you'll work on things that'll be scientific, blah, 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 lies, here, there. And so I said, that'd be cool. And then my first job was the NBC NCO for an infantry company. So there it is. Right back to the
right. Yeah. Because you guys are doing the same damn thing we are. Because there's not a whole lot of NBC operations going on anymore, which is, I mean, it's good and bad in a way. I hated MOP level 4 and all that good stuff, but no, that's awesome, man. So how many deployments did you do?
4.
Yeah. So we're a rare breed, man. I'm learning cause I also did 4. I did 3 to Iraq and Afghanistan, 1 to Afghanistan. How about you?
2 and 2.
2 and 2. Anything obviously something stands out for you. And so I guess we'll just talk about that. Talk about that moment, what deployment was it? Where were you? And, how that impacted you as a leader, losing Sergeant Beckerman.
Oh, definitely. That was my 3rd deployment. I was, if I just go back a little bit from that deployment, I was stationed in Korea from 2008 to 2010. And I asked to go to Germany. They said, you can't go to Germany because that unit's deploying. So your family wouldn't be able to settle. So we're going to send you to Fort Campbell. I said, awesome, let's go to Fort Campbell. So, and we've been to Fort Campbell before. We loved it there. As soon as I get there, hey, you're deploying in 60 days. I said, what? I said, wow, that's great. And we have nobody here, and now I'm deploying again. So my wife was pretty happy. But I did all the rear D stuff. I started learning some things and got on the plane, flew over there with some of the young soldiers, and we get into Afghanistan, Kandahar, and I get told, hey, you're going to be the security FOB security NCO IC and quick reaction force platoon sergeant. I said, awesome. I said, where's my platoon? Oh, you'll meet them. So my first sergeant took me around. We seen this big cloud of dust by the ECP-3, and these 2 young E5s come walking up to me, and they're just covered in dirt from head to toe. They look like Pigpen from the Peanuts. I said, what's up, boys? What are you guys doing? Well, we're building this tower, Sergeant. I said, where's your soldiers? We're showing them the right way. And right there, I was impressed with them for showing them the right way to do it and how dirty they were. It was just amazing. It was Sergeant Wamhoff and Sergeant Beckerman at that time. That's the first day I met them, and I was just impressed with both of them and their energy, their gall to get in there and get dirty. And then I started meeting the rest of the platoon, and it was just the Misfit Nation. This is where it comes from, the Misfit Nation. It was a band of soldiers that no one else in the battalion wanted, so they put them all together. So it was the Island of the Misfit Toys, and there I had cooks, I had mechanics, I had some intel dudes, I had chemical dudes. No one from my actual platoon was there. It was just dudes and dudettes and MPs, and they were just the best soldiers ever because they wanted to be seen, they wanted to be heard after they were just pushed into this pile. So that was in September. We went through. We were doing patrols at least twice a day around the fob, into the little villages around, meeting the locals. You know how it is, meet the locals and such. Going there, talking to them, hearing them say that we promised them stuff, we didn't promise them stuff, and we do this every day. And then Beckerman was an engineer, and the engineers got hit pretty hard in Kandahar due to the IED fight and stuff. So he went to the engineers to help them, and he was on a mission with them. And him and the lieutenant were going into a compound, and one or both of them stepped on the device. The lieutenant became a triple amputee. Beckerman was killed, and Specialist McMahon was just outside the door and could only see it. He couldn't get in because there was more devices between him and them. So he stayed there for probably a few hours while the EOD tech came in and cleared each one of those devices. Then we were able to pull them out. I was at the Fob Wilson when it happened, got the call from my first sergeant to come see him, and he told me this. And of course, you know what happens when you hear news like that. Your first instinct is to curse your head off, scream, punch something. I did all the above. And then I had to come up with a plan how to tell the rest of the platoon, how to get the rest of the platoon and without losing them, without having them wind up on CNN. So I started taking the leaders aside one by one to tell them what happened and to keep it to themselves until later when we know his wife, Maggie, who was in country with us, was notified, and his mom back in Missouri was notified. And it took a lot inside me not to just yell at every one of them that day to tell them what happened, and then to just put my arms around them, my big Sergeant First Class arms around them. I channeled my inner Gunny Highway, I guess, Clint Eastwood's role, to try to get them straight and do the right things from them, and then until April. So it was December 31st, 2010. This happens from New Year's Eve. And to get us all out of the country without anyone losing anyone else, getting anyone else wounded, or getting anyone in trouble was a milestone for me. And it changed my leadership approach 100%. Before that, I was knife hand, yell, yell, yell. After that, I kind of learned that you don't have to do that. You can just do your job and they'll do it with you. And that was my turning point right there.
Yeah, man. It's crazy how an event like that can really shape you as a leader. I learned pretty young in my career, just as an infantry guy being deployed, in Iraq in late 2004, early 2005 with the high VBID through. We lost a lot of dudes, man. And I see your point with, trying to go to each leader individually and kind of keep this under wraps, particularly because his wife is in country with you, and getting her notified, because nobody wants to find that out, through the grapevine and then spiral, but also for maintaining morale, because, there's that certain element of, I'm sure some of those dudes was their first deployment. They hadn't been exposed to a loss like this. And because he's an NCO and because of how you described him and the first day that you met him out there getting dirty, being a servant leader and a solid leader who shows you what right looks like, doesn't just tell you what right looks like. I'm sure he had, mad respect from others in that platoon. So I commend you for that, man. And then, you make a really valid point. And so, how did you get them through that other than, taking away the knife hand, having a more gentle approach? Like, what was your approach besides that to getting them home and keeping the morale up and making them do what they were supposed to do?
Well, we added some more PT in there to get some energy out, but Chaplain Sheets was our battalion chaplain, and he seen that I needed help, and he put his arm around me, and the way Chappie does, and he told me, hey, you need help. I know you need help. Let me help you. So I took them all into the chapel with him and let them just let them vent. And
yeah,
that was all together venting. And then each day I'd take one of them this is when they were first starting to do like the social workers, psychological operations people there. And Captain Stone was her name. And each day I would take one of them up there just to talk to her. Say, look, hey, just talk to her. And I'd get snacks because there was always snacks there. It was great. Get some candy and maybe a Rip It. I'd drink the Rip It while I was there in there with her. And then the last day after I got all of them through there, she said, when are you going to sit with me? I said, I have sat with you every day. You've heard my story through them. So thank you. But that's my approach, was to make sure I took care of the whole soldier, to take care of them, not just watching what they're doing, but also getting other people to hear what they're doing and let them vent, let them do things. And then we had a energy release day, which was basically combatives, and you call your shot, you call who you want, and everyone stood in a circle, and whoever you called, you had to fight and let it out. And it was a good time. It was amazing. It was a great time.
I particularly like that you encourage them to talk about it, because through 4 deployments, particularly as an infantryman, that was not okay. We didn't talk about it. It was compartmentalized, put that shit away, be angry and go get revenge type stuff. But you damn sure aren't going to talk about how this is affecting you and how you feel about it, and what's going on in your head. And so for you to really latch on to the chaplain, have a good chaplain like that. I also had great chaplains over my career, but also because of the culture and the leadership that I had, it just wasn't encouraged to use that resource. And hindsight's 2020, man, because now understanding that talking about your feelings and talking about that shit that you're going through, it's so important to getting past it. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that's what you were finding with your soldiers?
100%. I've seen it work for them, but I still didn't get help for myself. And it took a while for me to find someone that would actually listen to me, because I was a leader and I wasn't supposed to have problems.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, adding to that, let's talk about some significant challenges over your 22 years in the Army. I know losing Sergeant Beckerman, I also lost, when I was a TOC NCOIC in Afghanistan. Not that he was directly mine, but Sergeant Navarro, stepped on an IED and basically, ripped him in half. And I felt uber responsible for that. Right. And I sat with that for a lot of years. July 7th, 2012 was a pretty bad day for ACO 123. And I held on to that for a long time. So I know there's a lot of challenges that come from that, because like you said, you didn't get help for yourself. Right. Like, and I think as senior leaders, we tend to really fall into that trap a lot, where we forget to take care of ourselves. And so I'm sure it wasn't right away that you went and got help for yourself after that event. And it was probably, if I was guessing, several years before you actually got help for that. So talk about some of the challenges that you did face for the rest of your career because you didn't get help with that thing.
Oh, definitely. So we got home in April, and you go through the reintegration process, the reverse SRP thing, and they ask you at the medical table, do you need any help? And I told them, I said, I need to talk to somebody. I need help. It's no longer my family that's the problem. It's me. I'm the problem. I finally realized it after this is my 3rd deployment. I know I'm the problem now. I know I have the issues. I need help. And the dude looked at me point blank and said, look, you're a sergeant first class. Get back to your platoon and lead. I said, okay. 2 bags full. I'm out. Got it. So I went back to work, and I was short with people, short with my wife. I was having memory issues from blast and such. And I deployed another, probably 9 months later, 10 months later. I was back in Afghanistan again as an advisor in Kunar. Same time you were there. You were there in 2012. I was there. I got there in May 2012, left in December. So we were there at the same time. I got wounded my 2nd day on the COP. And that's what woke me up. I was in there, like we talked in the beginning, the 4th deployment. It's usually 3rd or 4th deployment. It's usually when you lose somebody, or usually when you get lost because you're rolling the dice way too many times at this point. Playing with fire. And I knew I was going into it negative Nancy the whole way. And that was part of that whole loss in 2010 coming up. All that negativity was in my head, and all the other dudes and dudettes I lost along the way. So it's my turn. This is it. I'm not coming home. And when that mortar hit behind me and blasted through my leg, it was like, that was my aha moment. Getting blown up was an aha moment. And, I'm sure you've heard other people say the same thing. Getting the blast, and all of a sudden, all right, it's time to turn this back on and be positive and lead forward and not lead back, not think behind me, not think about everything lost, think about what I can gain and keep moving forward. So when I went to Jalalabad to get the fob Fenty to get my surgery, you're like, all right, you're going to go to Germany. I said, no, I'm not. No, the hell I'm not. I'm going back to my COP. I said, you do what you got to do down there, fix my leg and get me out of here. Sergeant, you got to sign it. So I'm signing whatever. Good. And Sergeant Major Griffin came in. We lost him 2 months later. He came in and told me I had the $1 million wound. I said, no, Sergeant Major, I didn't get shot in the ass. It was my leg. He said, no, but you get a free license plate for life. I said, that's awesome. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, right. That's not what this is about. I'm glad you talked about, usually it's your third or fourth where you lose people. I was unfortunate and we lost people on all four, right? It just is what it is. But talking about that is important because, doing that many deployments, first of all, as an infantry guy, for me, statistically speaking, I probably shouldn't be here, right? You are rolling the dice too many times, but there's a lot of things that go into that. I'm sure you probably relate to this. I craved deployment pretty much after, getting home from the first one, 2 orders for the exact day that I knew I was going on the second one. And I'm sure you probably had an experience like that. I knew that on January 10th, 2007, I was deploying again after I got home on January 1st, 2006, right? Like, it's like, I knew that I had orders in my hand. And so, showing up for that second deployment, I was like, okay, here we go again. But then I got over there. It ended up being a 16-month deployment because we got extended like 3 months in. After that, I was like, man, I just want to be on deployment all the time. Well, in that, you end up becoming complacent to a lot of things that are going on over there. And so you talk about, on your fourth deployment, you're up there, you get the injury from a mortar round. I have a similar story from when I was at Cop Mushan. We had got our first mail run, and part of our protocols or whatever was to burn all of our boxes in this little burn pit we had in the very center of the Cop. Pretty much, I would say, kind of the safest from like mortar attacks or whatever, because that's where, they're not going to reach that far. Well, fuck, they did. And I just remember sitting there watching my box burn, and mortars are coming in, and I didn't move. I didn't move to go to any of the shelters that we had around place. Those giant, I forget what they call them, but those giant concrete kind of.
The little bunker things.
Yeah, the little bunker things. Until I felt the shrapnel hit my pants legs. And I just looked at a buddy of mine who he was on his fourth deployment also. It's like, we should probably get up and move now. And I want people to understand that's very much the attitude that we develop over that number of deployments. Did you find yourself in that position as well?
Oh, 100%. The day I got wounded, we got ambushed in the Dawigal Valley, the same valley that just on the, I guess, the far side of the valley where Lone Survivor happened. That whole incident happened, same exact valley. We got ambushed and we drove back and we're refitting our truck. And all they did was climb along the mountain to follow us back. And then they started raining mortars on us. And my team and my truck, Lieutenant Wheeler, Sergeant Brown, myself, Specialist Winslow, and Lieutenant Coggin at the time, we stood there at the truck and we're all itching. Every one of us was itching. And finally, me and Lieutenant Wheeler just jumped out and ran into the main part of the Cop to help others that were getting hit because we couldn't just sit there. It felt like in a truck while we're a target. Let's go in there. So we ran in and we helped who we could inside the main walls, and then we refitted back to the team room to go over like an AR while the Apaches were flying around getting those dudes out of there. And my medic's like, hey, Sergeant, it was his first deployment. Hey, Sergeant, I helped somebody. I said, awesome. So we stepped outside to talk about it, and I tapped him on the shoulder, say, hey, brother, great job. And that's when the mortar hit right behind me. I said, man.
Shit, dude. Yeah. I mean, that's how it goes though, man. And so your fourth deployment comes to an end. How many years are you at on this fourth deployment at this point?
I was 19. Oh, just over. Yeah, just at 19. Yeah, 19 in a month or so at that point.
So this is the part where it gets kind of wishy-washy for me, because I loved the Army. I was a career guy, and my fourth deployment was at year 11 and 12 for me. And getting back, I had gotten hurt on that deployment also, had to come back, have a couple shoulder surgeries, which ultimately put me out or whatever as a medical retiree. But for me, it was almost a blessing because I got so used to being deployed, I didn't know how to be a garrison soldier anymore. And, at that time in 2012, we knew the op tempo was slowing down. We weren't going to be deploying as much. I mean, if you think about my career, I was deployed every other year, my entire career, every other year, no more than 11 months of dwell time at any one time. And so, knowing that I'm not going to be a good garrison soldier, and being hurt, yeah, it's devastating, but also at the same time, it's like, whew, I don't have to learn how to be a garrison soldier and counseling packets and yes sir, no ma'am kind of stuff, because you're not doing that overseas. How did you get through those last 3 years? Because I'm sure you kept kind of craving the deployments and not enjoying garrison life.
Well, 10 years before that last deployment, I put in to go to either 160th Special Operations or to the Tech Escort units of the Army Chemical Corps. And the day I got wounded, somehow both of them sent me orders to join them. So when I got back to the cop, all I did was work out once I was allowed. Once I could stop hiding working out, I was told not to do anything. So I'd go out, get up at 3 a.m, work out to get myself back in shape. And then I started working myself when it was legal to do it. And when I got home, I was only home, I think, 4 or 5 months before I PCS to Aberdeen, Maryland, to be on a chemical reconnaissance team and respond to any chemical incidents on the east side of the Mississippi.
That's really cool. I'm really curious. How did you make the decision? If you got orders to both places, it's like, okay, 160 is a pretty cool place. I don't know anything about the other, right? Because I just wasn't a chemical guy. I just now finding out that exists. But how did you make that decision?
I didn't want to go to Green Platoon as an old man. So.
Yeah, right. So the physical challenges of Green Platoon is probably what deterred you from that then.
And with having a piece of metal in my knee, I said that it's probably good not to do that right now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So that was your last 3 years, was, potentially responding to chemical attacks east of the Mississippi.
East of Mississippi, all the way to the Middle East. Yeah.
That's really cool, man. So retirement is looming. How are you feeling about this at the time? Not knowing what transition is going to be like, right? Because you can't know.
Yeah, you have no idea. And like you said earlier, we all go through it, the minefield of transition. And when I was a young sergeant at Fort Stewart, Georgia, in 315th Infantry, Humberto Lopez was my platoon sergeant. He said, "You will know when it's time to get out." And that was in 1994. And I remembered that. 1994, he told me that you will know when it's time to get out. You'll have the feeling it's time to go. I got up to the Tech Escort unit. I was working my tail off. And there's just one day I woke up and said, I don't want to do this no more. So I'm done. So I put my paperwork in. I became since I was a GEO batch up there, I was going on a lot of liaison missions as well. So they would send me other places to go liaison with other units. And so I had a lot of time to contemplate and talk to older guys and sergeant majors of different units. And they said, yeah, you're probably ready. You're good. It's good to go. And I just started writing it out. And I knew all these other dudes and dudettes I served with got these awesome GS jobs during the GWAT times. I mean, you joined up. Most of your generation joined up while there was a war. So you signed up in 2000, 2001. There was a war already. So you, like you said, you were gone every year or so. I joined up in 93. So I had about 8 years of no war, just training your ass off, and then constant combat for the next half of my career, more than half of my career. So it was winding down. I knew it was time, and I knew all these dudes got jobs. I knew I'd get a job. There was no problem. So I had the same skills they had. I had all the same stats. The problem is there's only so many of those jobs, and no one was dying to leave them. So when I got out there, the wall was slammed in my face, and bam, woof. And the joy I thought I was going to have in transition went right away to, oh man, I must really suck. What am I doing wrong? And I took that long ride back from Maryland to Fort Campbell. I PCS back to Fort Campbell for 2 days to retire. So I retired there, and I knew it would only be a couple of days before I got a job, and it wasn't. Like you said earlier, 365 days of me searching for jobs, doing interviews, getting told, no, you want too much money. You're not the right fit. You went to the wrong school or whatever. And until I finally got a job at the Mission Continues after 365 days.
365 days without a job. Thank God you had retirement pay, right? Because that's rough. How did that shape your perception of the corporate world and the civilian world in general, not being able to get a job, being told you're asking for too much money, which I think is absolutely absurd. My biggest issue with, I guess, corporations wanting to hire veterans is, yeah, they get some kind of tax break, getting to say that they get to bring veterans in, but they don't understand, like, you can't treat us like day one privates. We have honed these particular set of skills, leadership, problem solving, adaptability, discipline, right? That doesn't warrant us starting from the very bottom of your company, right? So how is this making you feel, and what kind of struggles is this causing for you?
At first, I was a little angry because I never really asked for money. They just assumed because of my years of service and my rank, I wanted that money. I really just wanted out of the house. I wanted to get out of the house. I couldn't just sit on my couch and drink with my dogs every day. That's all I was doing, drinking with my dogs and doing all this stuff. And my wife was tired of me being home, so I wasn't going to the field anymore. She was so used to me going to the field my whole career and being gone that me being home now that's a burden because now I'm there. You know, who is this person here every day? I have to wash his clothes more often, and it was weighing on both of us. So I built this resilience, and I started just taking little notes of, all right, this company, they say they want this, but they really, like you just said, they get that kickback from the government or tax break or whatever for saying I hired a vet, but they also get a kickback for just interviewing us. The numbers of interviews for veterans, that helps their bottom line as well. We attempted to hire this many veterans, this many disabled people, this many of this, that, or that. So those numbers all helped them. And I just kept getting that in my head. And then I wound up with this fellowship with the Mission Continues where I volunteered at the Red Cross and I did about 700 hours of volunteer time in 5 months, just so I could stay out of the house.
Yeah, just to get out of the house for
And I
sure.
was giving back. And then right up towards the end, I drove up from Fort Campbell to Washington, D.C. to interview for a job at the Homeland Security Emergency Management Office up in D.C. And that's where I was told my school wasn't the right school. And I was like, so really? Not the right school. It's the same criteria, same curriculum. It's yeah, we have someone with a different school. Okay. So I was driving back. I was going to my in-laws house in West Virginia. And my fellowship program manager from Michigan just called me. I told him what happened. He said, you don't want that job anyway. I said, dude, I just drove 11 hours for an interview. I think I wanted
Right.
that job. He said, no, you don't want that job. He said, I'm going to send you a link. Fill out this application. So I got to her house. I seen the link, seen the application. I filled it out, and it was to work right alongside him and mentor other veterans. And that changed my trajectory 100%. And I started working there July of 2016, and seeing that I was able to help other veterans from the nonprofit side and learning the issues that they were all seeing. And it wasn't just it wasn't just me that was having these issues. It was all of us. It was the whole community of veterans having some portion of those issues. It made me feel better that I survived those 365 days. That we prepared for 6 months of no job, and it wound up being a year. So we did well to do that and make it through. And like you said, retirement pay and disability pay helps a lot in that situation. Not every soldier is going to get that. Not every sailor is going to get that. But learning that from all of our brothers and sisters that were veterans coming through the Mission Continues in the fellowship program showed me that we all need to help each other. We need to, like you starting the strategic veteran program here at show, and now I think you have a group now you made as well. It helps the community. Everything we need to do is to help the community and show that there is light at the end of that tunnel. And this fight, you're not alone. We all have been through it. It's just like you said earlier. Some of us get these big peaks and valleys, and some just somehow get that smooth sail. They step in crap on the way to work, and they make it out, and it works awesome. But we all have to work together.
Yeah, man. And you just talked about a couple of things that I want to touch on. One of them was you can't sit on the couch and drink with your dog all day. That is so common, and it's a quick way to fall way deep into that transition hole. But then there's another element that hasn't been talked about on this show that I do think is important to talk about, because I've experienced this in my relationships. I'm the typical infantry dude who's been married a few times. And you mentioned, your wife is frustrated because now this dude is here all the time, right? And I don't think people really understand like how much you're actually gone when you're in the Army. Like it's not just deployments. It's 2 weeks in the field every month, basically, right? You're pretty much only home, I would say, about 10 days a month, because you're either out in the field training, you're doing overnight sticks lanes, you're doing anything and everything, going to schools, right? And then deployment looms. And so, you're in a relationship with somebody, and being gone becomes the foundation of that relationship, because it's forced space. And I think oftentimes we don't really end up knowing who or what our partners are, or are about, even, right? We don't know what their values are, how they actually live life, because you're kind of living two separate lives. So I'm curious if you'll share with us, how did you make that better with I assume you have the same wife now. But how did you navigate that, other than just trying to get out of the house and find a job, right? Like, there's some conversations that had to be had, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%. And we just celebrated our 30th anniversary in June.
Well, congratulations,
May
brother. That's amazing.
June, since we had a church wedding, a Hollywood wedding, eloping, and then a Hollywood wedding, I guess. So we celebrated both and went to Italy for a couple weeks in June. And conversations, you just hitting nail on the head, talking. You had to learn to talk. When we first got married, my uncle John told me, always talk. Never, and my dad always would tell us, never go to bed mad. And that way you're always in a good place when you wake up. So we weren't, because we were always apart, we weren't talking. We would talk on the phone or email or text or whatever. But then in your home, you're sitting there looking at each other. Oh, what do we do with our hands? We don't know. So you force yourself to do things. So we'd go on hikes, we'd go running, we'd go hang out take the dogs on long walks, or just go drive into the country. And that forced us to be together, to talk and to do things. And now we just do that all the time. It's a second nature.
That's awesome, man. I'm so glad you talked about that, because communication is key, and doing it from a solid place, right? Like, not a place of anger or frustration, but just genuinely, almost like you're trying to get to know each other again. Like, talk about what you're going through with your partner or your spouse, right? Like, talk about the challenges that you're going through, which is, my next question for you. What lessons did you learn during your transition that you now share with other veterans to help them through their transition?
The good days will outweigh the bad days. You have to understand that you're gonna every day there's a challenge. As you get older, like you getting wounded, getting hurt. There's days you get up and it hurts, and it's gonna hurt. And things, you're happy when you stand up in the morning. So start stacking those victories. It's something we say in the Misfit Nation all the time. Stack those victories every day. So you wake up, that's a victory right there. Make your bed, victory. Brush your teeth and you still have your teeth, victory. And you're able to smile throughout the day. Yeah, things go wrong every day. Don't dwell on them. Learn from them, move forward. If that job doesn't like you, it means it wasn't meant to be. Don't take it personal anymore. It hurts a little bit. It stings because you used to be the hard charger, the high speed, low drag dude. But get over it. Get over it and keep moving forward. And they'll find someone that fits for them, and you'll find something that fits for you. And in the end, it'll all work.
I love that, man, because what you're talking about is incremental progress, right? Incremental progress. And it doesn't have to be big wins. It's as simple as, man, I'm glad I could get out of bed today and not hurt, right? Like, that's a win, and you need to ride that. But moreover, did you use any other tools, like, I don't know, switching from that fixed mindset of the Army to the growth mindset that's required to be successful in this world, adopting an abundance mindset, maybe a gratitude practice? Did any of that come into your kind of field of view and tools that you use to heal yourself?
I think a combination thereof. After I finally had a doctor sit down and talk to me, a civilian doctor, we did EMDR. I got everything off my chest, and I learned that letting it go, letting that off my chest helped me out, helped me to breathe. But also listening to others, like me talking to you now. You're listening to me, I'm listening to you. We're able to talk, and you can hear key things I'm saying that's helping you relate and say something that you probably never told to other people, or you'd like to share now because it's helps you to breathe during the day. To talk about Sergeant Navarro, who you lost in July 2012. And if I understand what you're going through, you understand what I'm going through. It helps us to meet in the middle. And even if we don't have the same beliefs and whatever, you believe in blueberries, I believe in strawberries, whatever, we can still meet in the middle, have a coffee, and find out what makes us both tick and what do we both want. And when I started working at the Mission Continues, this is a quick story here. They pair you up with a battle buddy. They call it a battle buddy. And mine was a younger female, and she was a social worker, still is. She's a great human being. She, of course, she was a Democrat liberal. I'm a Republican conservative. And they thought it would be hilarious to put us together, I guess, and thought maybe we'd argue. But me and her, we'd go to coffee, we'd sit and just talk. We'd talk, we'd have breakfast, and we'd learn about each other. And what you learn is we all want the same thing. We all want our country to strive. We want it to be the best it could be. We just have different approaches to it. Maybe I don't like what the approach they like, or she doesn't like the approach I like, but somewhere in the middle, we like what we're both doing. And we're going to get there. We just have to fight the noise on the outside and find our way.
Well, and you're absolutely right, man. It's a prime example, right? Like I don't talk about this a lot at all, but my wife was born and raised in Olympia, Washington, so she's as far out there, right? Completely opposite of me, and I don't really know what I am. I don't put labels on it. I really just genuinely want to be left alone and just to live my life, you know. But it's the ability to have an open minded conversation and meet each other where you're at, right? Like I believe these things. These are why I believe these things. Here's reasons that I like, tangible reasons I can give you. And you need to take that step back, open your mind, and actively listen to that person and really try to understand where they're coming from. And it's one of the coolest skills in the world that you can have, because like you were saying, my whole reason for starting this show is because it selfishly it's cathartic for me. I get to talk to other people and hear their experiences, right? And I can relate things in my life to those experiences, whether they're the same or they're similar or they're different. And it helps me, I think, work through some of the things that I still deal with, because the healing journey, let's be honest, it's a lifelong journey. It's never over, right? Because I just look at it as, you were talking about peaks and valleys, right? And life is really, it's full of peaks and valleys, and it's about not staying too high or too low, but it's about finding that balance. And for me, it is that balance to have these conversations, to be able to relate to your experience and see it in my life experience, and understand, okay, well, maybe I didn't approach that the right way. I could have done a little bit better about it, right? Like how you were talking about handling the death of Sergeant Beckerman with your platoon is not at all how I would have handled death with my platoon when I had a platoon, because I think part of it's because I come from the infantry world where I grew up in an army where that's not okay. And you don't talk about shit like that, right? Like you just take a knee, face out, drink water, drive on, kind of thing. So I'm glad that you speak to that, because it's super important. And so how did you, what sparked the whole entrepreneurial bug for you and prompted you to start Misfit Nation Show and the LLC, start writing your books? Let's get into like, where did you find this drive to do what you do?
I think my entrepreneurial bug started when I was probably 12, but I had my first contract to remove snow in New Jersey. Me and my friend Kevin, we signed a contract with my dad's company to shovel snow. So that was our first business.
Oh, so
Illegal.
your dad owned a company
He
then?
didn't
So
own the
you,
company. He worked for a public service electric and
okay.
gas, the company he worked for. And they signed a contract with us to remove snow whenever it snowed and clean the cars off. So we took it, and we were young kids, so that was legal money in the city. You don't usually get legal jobs in the city as a kid. Uh, so we did that, and so that started my bug for business. My first journey into college was business related. Everything was business, 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 because that was the cool thing to do back then. Take classes on business, but I wasn't happy, of course. And you flash forward through the career of learning emergency management, homeland security became a thing, and I figured that's something I'm really good at, something I know what to do. Let's go with that. But then there's a crazy thing called COVID happened, and the world turned off. Everyone hit the off button for a little bit there. I, and I couldn't turn off. There's no way I can turn off. I just finished my studies at Georgetown University for my master's right there, right when COVID started. So I didn't get to walk across stage. And I had about 8 hours in a week left that I had nothing assigned to. I said, I got to do something. I told my wife, I got to find something to do or I'm going to go nuts here. So I said, if Joe Rogan can do a podcast and he's a comedian, I can do it and talk about real stuff. So I started doing the podcast to bring veterans on, just like we were just talking about, get them to let the stuff off their chest, tell their stories. And then they said, hey, this is awesome, but we need help with other stuff. And that's why I have so many other experts come on, authors, social workers, other ways of taking care of your mental health. Mental health professionals come on there and tell them there's other ways besides the mandated drug way of doing it. There's ways of doing it without drugs and getting through it. So that started, and then I realized I can share my story through speaking. So I can go out and to a crowd of business people or a high school or wherever and just tell my story and tell them how I got through it, just like me and you just did right now. And hopefully somewhere in that group, I reach one, teach one. So one person in that audience learns something from me and has a better day, better life. I'm successful at that point. If all of them do, that's bonus money right there. And then the books, the first book, 13 Step Guide to Success, which I got an award for, every month during COVID, I would make a stupid post on Facebook at the end of it about Jumanji. You made it to this level of Jumanji. You made it through this goblin. And because every month they would sell new fears to us. And this month you have to look out for this, this, and this. At the end, I made 13 things that you did well and what to look forward to next year. My daughter's like, you should put that in a book. So I said, all right, challenge accepted. I wrote it. She edited it for me, and I put it out the next December.
Dude, that's awesome. Did you ever have aspirations to write a book, or it really was by accident?
It was happy accident.
And so I've talked to a couple of other authors on here, one of which wrote like 7 or 8 books, and he doesn't know why he keeps doing it because he says it's such a monster of a project. Did you find it to be a monster of a project, or was it kind of cathartic and fun for you because you had been making those social posts, right? And then had the advice from your daughter to turn it into a book. So what was that process like?
I think the first one was more cathartic and fun. I just expanded upon my steps that I made, our 13 steps. I expanded upon it for each chapter. And then the second book, Out of the Darkness, it kind of hits home because it's more of a journey of a fictional military story, but actually each one of my characters is a combination of many soldiers I worked with or served with in my career. So I put them all in there, just gave them different names, protect the innocent and such, and wrote that book. And it was trying to make it right and make it flow correctly. And the work that goes into that was a lot harder than the first book.
Yeah, for sure. It's particularly a fiction book, right? Because now you got to sell the story, people to get them to resonate with it. That's really cool, man. Your values are mindset, resilience, and grit. And I want you to talk about those values, particularly how they influence one another and how you kind of influence your life and your coaching and everything you have going on with those set of values.
I think we spoke earlier about the growth mindset or the openness, having a mindset that you could be open to new things and keep learning and growing and be positive. Don't dwell on the bad things that happen. Don't dwell on negativity, or if the news bothers you, turn it off. Have a mindset that makes you move forward and look people in the eyes and say hello. How are you? Yeah, some of them might be in shock that you do that because they don't talk to humans anymore. But there might be that one person that all of a sudden smiles or cries that you said hello to because they never spoke to someone. They haven't spoke to someone in so long. So you do that. Get that going. Be resilient in your daily, and I guess your whole life. Be resilient. Bad things happen. Bad things usually happen to good people, but good people usually get back up. If you're resilient enough, and this goes into the grit side as well, you're not judged by how many times you fall down. You're judged by how many times you get back up. So if I fall down and get back up that same time, that's what I'm getting judged by. If I got back up and started running forward, just like you and your platoon in combat, me and my platoon in combat, if we're getting shot at and we stay down, that's what you're judged on. If you stay down. If you get up and run forward, that's even higher judgment because look at these dudes. They just gave up. They're being selfless. They're trying to save their brother and sister to their left and right and move forward into that fight. And you can do the same thing in the civilian world. You move forward, and if something's going bad at work, how do I work this problem? I move forward and work the problem. I don't sit back and wait for someone else to do it. You move forward, you ask for ideas, and you work forward. Having the grit to fight through it and just work the problem and do things the right way, and know that take all the lessons you learn through life and just pile them up into that little mountain that's in your backpack, your rucksack, and say, look, I got this. I'm the backpack guy in Jumanji. I know I have this tool I can do. I got this tool. I can move forward and have that grit and wherewithal to move through life. All three of those things work kind of together. If you put them in one of those Venn diagram things, they all kind of touch each other and work together in a happy medium in the front, and you'll have the little happy face in there saying you're doing great things.
I love that, man, because I 100% agree with you. I look at grit and discipline as kind of the same thing, right? And the discipline or grit to understand that you need to develop that mindset, right? That growth mindset that we talked about earlier, so those two work together. And by developing that growth mindset, you end up developing a level of resilience that you didn't even know possible. So I love how you equated it to the Venn diagram. I immediately think like Ikigai, if you know what an Ikigai is, right? And that intersection of those three things basically is who you become, right? And that's just so amazing, man. So you've published those 2 books and are working on your doctorate. Congratulations, brother. That's dumb soldiers aren't supposed to get doctorates. You know what I mean? Like, can you talk about the doctorate and what compels you to get a doctorate? Why do you want to get a doctorate? Just to say you did it, or do you want to do something and make an impact with it? Like, what is it?
One of my last professors at Georgetown told me that He thinks this is as far as I should go. This is about as good as I am. Don't go further. So I took that as a challenge. Challenge accepted.
Perfect.
Arnie
Yep.
Stinson.
Get it.
I thought, all right, I can do this, and I applied and I got accepted. So I applied for Homeland Security for my doctorate, but Liberty University made me do some criminal justice stuff in the front end of it, which I was the only person in there without a criminal justice background. And you're going through this online stuff, and they're talking about stuff. I was like, that is awesome. You guys are smart, because I have no idea what you're talking about. But I wound up getting an executive's certificate in criminal justice just by taking those courses. So that was another mad thing on my wall. And now my dissertation is on securing the Internet of Things in an emergency situation. So like all the things that we take for granted now, like your Bluetooth watch or garage door opener, all that stuff in your house, all your security systems in your house. How do we secure all that during an emergency situation? That's what my dissertation has to go, is delving into.
Well, that's something worth delving into, because I often wonder that at the same time. It's crazy. I don't have like a Walmart Plus subscription or anything like that. And I got a fucking weird email the other day where I'd gone in there to buy some like lens wipes and I don't know, yogurt or something. And I get an email and they're like, how was your purchase? And I'm like, how do you even fucking know that I was buying this shit? Like, I'm not plugged into the Walmart thing, but self-checkout has cameras and the credit card number is tied to me. And so that's tied to my email address. And here we are. Walmart knows at 7:02 p.m. on Wednesday, July 15th, I was buying yogurt and fucking lens wipes. So yeah, great dissertation, man. I actually will try to read that when you publish it, because that's amazing. What are some of the other? You said you got a master's from Georgetown. For those that don't know, Georgetown, I think, is an Ivy League school, right?
It's not Ivy. It is it's a D1. It's a very prestigious.
It's a super prestigious school. How was that experience for you? Because I also, when I got out, I ended up going to college, and for me, I knew when I joined the Army, I didn't want to go to college, right? I just did enough to keep my grades up to play sports, which is a pretty common story with most people who join. However, I found college to be really, really easy. And I didn't get an opportunity to do any kind of schooling while I was in, because just the op tempo was too high. I was always having to drop classes or whatever. But college almost was a joke. And I kind of came up with this theory that I don't think college was designed for people right out of high school. I think it's designed for people with a little bit of life experience, because I can remember being in the flight ops room at the flight school, working on the gen ed classes, and I would have all of my work done, because most of it was online, by Wednesday. And these younger kids would be looking at me like, how in the world do you have this work done? And I'm like, I mean, just because that's what you do. Like, here's a task, do the task. And I value my time. So if I have all my work done by Wednesday, that gives me Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to do whatever I want and not have to think about school. So did you find your college experience to be kind of mirror of that?
Pretty close. Like I said, I started college, then went in the Army. So I had a year and a half, almost 2 years of credits, but I never touched it again. That was 91, 92 when I came in the Army. I didn't touch those credits again until right when I got wounded, really. When I got wounded in 2012, there was another team on our base, and he said, look, you should start looking towards college, get your degree before you get out. I said, that's probably a cool idea. So I started doing online courses through then. It was called Ashford University. And I was doing that while I was stuck in my room, just doing pogue work there before I can go on patrol again. So I was knocking out classes, and my team was like, you're doing pretty good. I said, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just reading the stuff and regurgitating and putting it on there. It looks pretty cool, though. So I graduated with my bachelor's in January 2015, retired in June of 2015. And then I started Georgetown 2016-ish. Yeah, 16-ish. And it was a different set of students, of course, at Georgetown, and a lot more debate between each other, but a friendly debate. I made a lot of good friends at Georgetown, and a lot of them we still talk now, even though we're geographically separated throughout the country and world, really. There was other soldiers, veterans in there, Coast Guardies, Navy guys, Navy gals. So a lot of us had that military background, so it helped a lot in the field, disaster emergency management. So we were able to help each other out and pushing through that. And now with the Homeland Security for my dissertation, I can still reach back to them for advice and things they're seeing out there to see what they're doing and come back in. So it all helped out.
That's awesome, man. How long before you're finished with the doctorate?
I prayed by May of next year.
A little bit less than a year, man. Well, I'm rooting for you. Talk about the Travis Manion Foundation and what impact and hope that what impact is it having on the veteran community, and what impact do you hope to see it have on the veteran community in the future?
The Travis Manion Foundation was named after Lieutenant Travis Manion. He was a Marine killed on his second tour in Iraq. He was from the greater Philadelphia area. He was at a Philadelphia Eagles game with his friend right before his second deployment, and he was walking up the stairs, and his friend said, "I can push you down the stairs now, and you won't have to deploy." And he just looked at him and said, "If not me, then who? If I don't go, who will? I'm trained up. I know my guys. Who's going to lead them if I don't go?" And he went and we lost him. And his sister Ryan started the foundation in his honor, and that's the tagline: "If not me, then who?" So what we do is we provide this thing called Character Does Matter. We list the character strengths. We go into schools and have the students take a Character Does Matter strengths analysis. And they find out their strengths through 23 strengths. And then we kind of hone in on each one of them and try to find out what they're really good at, what they're kind of falling at, and try to get them to bring them both together so we can mentor them to be the leaders of tomorrow, the leaders we need in this country. And that helps the veteran by showing their skills that they learned in the military, of course, and giving back. So you're giving back to your community, giving back to the youth, and showing them that people care about them, because sometimes they don't know that. And that helps them to grow as the leaders in their school and then as they move forward in life. And it really helps the veteran community to get that. It helps them to walk taller, I guess. Again, some guys and gals, they lose that mantra of walking tall when they get out. And when you're able to give back and see the impact immediately that on the faces of the youth, it's amazing. We just did a backpack drive right the day I came up here. So I was part of the planning, but I came up here and they got to execute. So it was pretty awesome. 200 kids got backpacks and did a little CDM class in there as well. So my wife actually went to this one, first time she went to it, and she was pumped up after it. So it's an amazing organization. If you haven't checked them out, check out Travis Manion.
Yeah, I love that, man, because not only is it inspiring to the youth, but it's also cathartic and really, I have this theory, everybody says they join the military for a myriad of different reasons, but I think the main reason is all of them at some point or another felt a call to serve something greater than themselves. And I think that fits right in with kind of my mission with a strategic veteran, the path back to purpose being through entrepreneurship and doing things with like the Travis Manion Foundation, because you're doing it in service of others. You're doing it to make others' lives better. And that can apply to business as well. You don't have to be a scumbag corporation that maximizes profits. You can uplift so many people by starting your own thing. And I do it with my company. I have a team, and I funneled referrals back to my team for what they're good at, and they get to make some money on the side, and then whatever profits this makes, they get a piece of that for doing work for me. And I'd rather have a small portion of something that is big and be helping people than have, 100% of something that's not very big and feel like a scumbag for it. So I commend you, man. That's awesome work the Travis Manion Foundation is doing. And I know it's helping everyone who's involved.
Yes. Our whole team down in the Clarksville chapter, we all have a great time doing it. Have an awesome feeling after we do stuff. So it's amazing.
For sure. Looking ahead, what are some of your goals for the next few years, personally and professionally?
Personally, release the second part of Out of the Darkness, Forged in Resilience. It should be done hopefully by December. That's the part 2 of that book, the fictional book. Career-wise, I'd like to start consulting for Homeland Security with both my degrees. To start doing consulting work while still doing the work I do now, training soldiers. Training soldiers is another thing that gives back to me. It's a selfish job a little bit, because I get to give and get at the same time. So it's awesome to do this job every day. It's still like I'm being in a big kid job. Personally, I'd like to travel more with my wife. I think that's a little more in between, because she's a teacher, so we only can travel really during the summer. So when it's the hottest as possible, we'll go travel.
Yeah, right. What advice do you want to give to veterans who are about to transition out or struggling with their current transition?
You said, I don't know if we did this while we're on the air, but as soon as you raise your right hand, you're already transitioning. Remember, there's an end point to everything you do. As soon as you signed up for the military, you got to leave at some point. You can't stay in it forever. Yes, I know there's people in the National Guard that stay in there for most of their life.
50 years,
50 years.
right?
But that's a weekend a month, and they have to get so many points or whatever to retire. But you have to transition at some point. You have to get out, whether it's a one enlistment, 4 year, 2 years, 4 years, whatever you're allowed to do now, or the 20-year mark, or like you who had the unexpected transition after a decade of service, after getting injured. That's even harder, I believe, because if you're not really ready for it, it's a punch in the face, and you have to run forward. You have to get punched by Mike Tyson at that point. So you have to always be prepared. As soon as you raise the hand, what do I want to do when I grow up? In the military, I called it. When I did my retirement ceremony, the general said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "I got to get an adult job." He said, "What?" I said, "I've been a kid for 22 years. This is an amazing job, but now I got to get one that actually have to work." And he said, he laughed, because you have to work when you get out. You're not just going to do things that are fun. You don't get paid to be fit. You don't get paid to go shoot guns. You don't get paid to go hang out in the woods and go camp with your best friends. You got to go do work, and you got to be prepared for that. And if it's taking more classes, educational wise, book wise, or maybe learning a new skill at a tech school, you don't have to go the book route. You can go to tech. You can become an IT person, do C++, A+ security, do all that stuff. There's a whole world of money out there for IT, and you don't have to get a huge degree for it. You can get certificates and get there, but choose your path and choose it wisely.
I love that you're speaking to the certificates and stuff like that. I would encourage every single one who's, you're all going to transition at some point. So spend some of your career really trying to hold on to things that interest you, exploring things that that resonate with who you are as a person, not just your military identity and purpose, but like find that purpose within yourself and start doing things to leverage so that when you get out, you don't get out like me. I had no idea it was coming. I had no idea I was getting out. I thought I was going to be a soldier for at least another 7 years. You know what I mean? And that was not the case. And thank God I found, a flight school, and they took the GI Bill, because I thought that was my dream. Turns out, that really wasn't my dream, but I did accomplish something that I had wanted to accomplish my whole life, because I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no clue what I was going to do. And finding a job in 2015 as an infantryman was not easy, because those skills nobody taught me how to translate those skills to a resume. You can't put "I kick doors down and shoot people in the face" on a resume. It just doesn't work. Like, nobody resonates with that. So I love your advice, man. Let's talk about what's the one thing that you hope that all the listeners here today take away from our conversation? That
there is light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to go into that downward spiral. When bad things happen to you in your job search or your transition journey, step up, stand up. If you're airborne, stand up, hook up, and run out the door. If you're air assault, get in the L and slide out. If you're just a driver, drive away. Do what you got to do. Do whatever you were trained to do in the military. You never quit in the military. Don't quit now. Stay in the light. Don't go to the darkness.
Yeah, man, I love it, dude. Tell everybody how they can connect with you, find you online, get information on the Misfit Nation Show, and all that good stuff, brother.
Best way is to go to our website, themisfitnation.com. All our contact information is on there. If you reach out to us through there, our socials are all on there as well. Reach out to us. We get back to you, or you can contact me at richlamonica101@gmail.com. Podcast is live Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central Time on YouTube at @the_Misfit Nation.
Oh, yeah. What's one book you're reading right now that you think everybody should read?
Team of Teams by Stanley M. Crystal.
Hell yeah. Is that General Stanley M? Yeah. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Everybody, I present to you Mr. Rich LaMonica. Thank you so much for being here today, brother. I really appreciate your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and all the wonderful insights you shared with the audience here. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us get this in front of 1 million veterans before I turn 40 on May 9th, 2025. I know it's a lofty goal. I say this just about every week. I know that one community on the planet, there's 19 million veterans in the United States. I think we can accomplish that goal by the time I turn 40. We'll see you next week, everybody. Mr. Rich LaMonica. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.